Hello, hi. So I'm back for day 29 of VEDA, and today I want to talk about an app that I have seen a lot of conversations happening, definitely on TikTok. There's a lot of people who are going on these things called Randonauts, and so some people are aware of it, but this is kind of a newer topic for others, so I thought I'd talk about it. And I wanted to talk about it from a slightly different perspective. Really, I just wanted to do a little bit more digging and kind of see, what this app is all about. Because when I'm looking at videos and I'm trying to just understand a little bit more about the app, everyone kind of does the general overview about what the app is, and then they start talking about people's stories and people's experiences with the app. And typically what I've seen most commonly is people talking about kind of the negative or frightening things that people have experienced. And so I want to talk about just kind of how it works, because I was interested in that. And so I did a little bit of digging today to kind of understand it, and it took me down the rabbit hole, quantum physics. So before I dive into that and talk about that a little bit more, let me just describe Randonautica. So first, we are going to pull up the website. So here is the website. This is the Randonautica website. So it's randonautica.com. And so I kind of poked around because I was just curious, like, how big is this? So this app was just, is a brand new app in the grand scheme of things. Like, it just was put into the app stores earlier this year, so it's not like it's been around for years and years, and it's definitely a new phenomenon for sure. And I'm sure the creators of it are really enjoying kind of all of this combination of attention and notoriety, because some of the attention hasn't been so positive, but it all kind of falls in line with what they said the app is. So this is the website, and the one thing I want to draw your attention to, which I thought was interesting, was, okay, so you go up here, you see this bar that shows the language. So of course, typically when a website is multiple languages, I think the way that it works is that it defaults to the native language of the browser of the country where the person is. So if it's in your language for wherever you live, it'll show, your language will show up. If I'm not mistaken, I don't know that all of them have kind of that same level of intuitiveness where it kind of picks that up, but I think that is often what happens. If not, then you can just select your language. So it's in English, but I noticed, I was like, oh, there's an arrow here. Let's check this out. So I clicked, and it's in 1, 2, 3, 4, which I think is, darn it, I meant to look, DE is Dutch, maybe. ES, of course, is Espanol. Yeah, I think Deutsch, Spanish, French, Japanese, and Russian. So they definitely have created this app for wide distribution. And I would be very curious to see kind of what people's experiences are like in other countries with the app. But nonetheless, the bulk of the videos that I've kind of come across on TikTok and YouTube are people who are in the US. So I thought that was interesting, just wanted to point that out. So let's just do a quick look at the website. Randonautica, it's the world's first quantumly generated choose your own adventure reality game. Explore the world you never knew existed. And so it has this kind of interesting little dot of dots thing here, and then it talks about Randonautica. So it's quantumly random, mind matters, and a whole new world. And so it's really just, like they said, it's a choose your own adventure game. So you use the app to explore different areas where you are. And I say that kind of vaguely because it uses your location. So I mean, you can explore like in your hometown, if you're in your hometown, but if you were in like another city, you can also randonaut in another city, which I don't know, I would definitely, just a quick disclaimer, I would recommend against doing this in a city that you are not familiar with, mainly because it's random. And so it's going to take you somewhere that may not be familiar just in general, but it's safest if you're in your own city, because 9 times out of 10, if you're not familiar with the immediate area where your Randonaut takes you, you're at least familiar with kind of the area to get to that area. Like, it's not going to be a completely foreign land. If you are in a city or a state or country where you do not live and you are not as familiar, I could see it possibly getting you into trouble, and you won't know that things could go awry until you're there. Whereas if you do it in your city and you see where it's going to send you, you know, as you are going there, you can say, oh wait, this is in a side of town that I'm either not familiar with, or this isn't, you know, a side of town that I want to be on, especially if you're like alone, which I don't know if it's a good idea to Randonaut alone, but I've seen people do it. So that's really it's like, if you're in a city you've never been to, I don't recommend you doing this in a city if you are not with people who are from that city. Then you will be you'll be more apt to be safe because that person knows what's happening. And it's really just about knowing your surroundings and not ending up in a situation where you don't know what's happening. So so that is, here it says, and so I think it's also interesting because I've been looking at the stories and I think it's very interesting. The official app is available in the App Store summer 2020. So the app that is currently being used by people is a beta version, which means it's not the finished version. It still has kinks to work out, and it's essentially being tested. So if you are randonauting, sorry, there's hair on my lip gloss, annoying. If you are randonauting right now using the app, then you are actively involved in a beta test, which means if something goes awry, and things kind of go wonky, this kind of gives them an out, which the creators have used, because, you know, when things happen in a story that I'm going to tell you, they were able to say, well, you know, our intention is not to put people in danger. That is not the goal of the app. We are, you know, it's in beta, and so we're still making updates, and we're still fine-tuning the app. So that's the thing when you download and use a beta app or any type of beta tech, you are essentially agreeing to be a tester. So that's something that's important to keep in mind, and I don't know that I've seen many people say that, and so I think that's important because the app is still in process. It's not finished, and so what is happening in beta could look completely different when they finally get it to where it's, you know, where the app is and it's kind of functioning as they are intending it to function. But right now it's testing. So if you're doing Randonauts, you're participating in a beta test, which is fine, but it's important to be aware of that. And so that's the end of the website. So this is Randonautica, this is the website, and then of course they have, you know, some tips that I will click on in a second. They talk about the team, they have a Q&A section, they have a shop, they have a support section if you want to donate to support the app. So, you know, this is a very thorough website. I have looked at websites for apps before, and sometimes they can be a little thin and loose on information, but you can tell they definitely put some thought into this. I mean, they have a logo with like font and all that. Like, they've definitely put some thought into it. But another thing I also want to call out, I'm talking like I'm at work. I want to point out, when I click on Be a Responsible Randonaut, because I was curious, you know, how they're going to kind of insulate or protect themselves from these crazy stories that keep happening. And so they have this top 10 ways to randonaut responsibly. And so they give you 10 rules, essentially, or 10 requirements, 10 recommendations to be responsible. One is only adventure during the day. I've seen people randonauting at night and things got a little weird and just uncomfortable because you can't see. So on the website it says do this during the day. They say always randonaut with a charged phone, which I think is smart. I think anytime you're going outside to do something where you are not kind of in with a power source, you should have your device fully charged. So if something happens, you can, you know, call for help. And then it says keep a positive mindset. That's important. I'll mention that later. Go on the journey with a friend or small group. So again, I've seen people randonauting alone, but they say on the website it's acceptable, but maybe start with a small group and a friend. And it says for beginners, but I definitely would think just in general, you should do it because you're going somewhere you don't know. You're going to a random point on a map, essentially. So it's like you should take someone with you, just for safety. And then of course it says don't go anywhere outside your comfort zone. Always use common sense and enjoy the journey. So I just said a couple of them, kind of the last few, but it's important. You know, they say don't trespass, stay totally clear of dangerous areas. So I think they do a pretty good job of, now stop showing you this. I think they do a pretty good job of kind of covering themselves as a company, you know, as the marketing person. I'm also looking at like, how is this organization handling this? Because they're getting some mixed kind of experiences. So they've kind of done what they can. I'm sure there's, hopefully they have like some type of legal person that they can kind of lean on to just make sure that they're covered as an organization. But the biggest thing I think it's important to mention is that when you are randonauting, it's a random experience. So you're essentially choosing, you know, numbers on a map to visit, coordinates on a map to visit. So you have to kind of take some responsibility and understand that you're going into an environment and, you know, proceed accordingly so that you don't put yourself in danger. I have seen some videos. So now just speaking to kind of some of the experiences I've seen some videos, people have had some negative experiences. So initially, when I first learned about Randonautica and was kind of looking at the videos, especially on TikTok, I was thinking it was like some type of scary, creepy app. But then I was like, but wait, it sounds like it's not. It sounds like it's just people have kind of, had these experiences, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the app itself is creepy. And so here's how it works when you want to randonaut. You, and let me just show you, since I did one on my phone. I downloaded the app and kind of pulled up a Randonautica just to kind of see how it works. I may or may not actually go to the place, but I wanted to pull it up. And so this is what it looks like when you pull up the app. And so you pull it up, you know, it gives you kind of some rules, some tenets, gives you kind of the same tenets and the rules that you see on the website. You know, gives you have to click that you agree for privacy and all that purposes. And then when it's time to randonaut, you get to pick kind of how you see the information that it gives you. And then it allows you to either say, I want to use my location as kind of the center of the randonaut, or I want to give it a location to use as a center. So you don't have to kind of do it from where you are, but I did just to kind of see what happens. And so you start with setting an intention. You set the intention, and that just really means you like pick a thought, pick a word, kind of, or something that you want to experience. I think setting an intention when you're using a word, sorry, there's something in my eye, it's annoying me, is I think the most efficient way to set an intention because it's just a word, so you can kind of focus on it. And so you're supposed to set your intention, focus on that, and then, you know, click to begin to find your point. And so what I'm seeing happen is that people are having these experiences, but when I started seeing kind of some of the crazier, scarier experiences, people's intentions that they set were some scary, crazy intentions. So like I saw quite a few videos where their intention was death, or their intention was fear, and it's like they set this intention that can definitely put you in a place where something frightening could happen. And so it's like, well, if that's what your intention is, then, you know, you definitely don't deserve what happens to you, but it helps to explain kind of the framing around whatever was experienced in those negative ones, or maybe not negative, I'll say scary ones, because they were kind of frightening. The people who experienced them freaked out. You know, some, and they're just like, don't do it. And, you know, they had these really crazy experiences. But then I saw some that were way more benign. So I saw some where like their intention was, their intention was a dog. Cause I guess the girl's mom, the woman who did it, her mom's dog had died recently, and so her intention was, or they couldn't find the dog, or no, the dog had died. Something happened with a dog and a pet, and so that was their intention, was a dog or a pet. And when they went out on their Randonaut, they came across kind of a dog. It belonged to somebody, but the dog was kind of out. The dog ran up to them, and it was a whole kind of interesting experience. Someone else was like making a decision about college, and so they said, my intention is to just make sure I'm making the right choice. So I want confirmation that what is my best decision. And they go to like this field, and the letters for the college that they are, one of the colleges that they're considering, was kind of just randomly in the field. So that's kind of like, ooh, that's weird and it's eerie, but it's not scary. So the person was like, oh, that's weird. Okay. So I do think that it's possible that people are having, not bad, but also even just benign experiences. Like I saw a couple where they were like, so we came out here and it was kind of nothing. And so, and then in those instances, sometimes they'll kind of restart and do another Randonaut. But I say all that to say that it's just people are having kind of variety of experiences. And so I wanted to look into the quantum part, because I was like, how is Randonautica working? And so it says that it is using it's quantumly random. So it's using quantum entropy. It's using quantum entropy in order to find the points. And so I was like, quantum entropy, what does that mean? So that took me down a rabbit hole of quantum physics, which I did not understand. But I was able to kind of eke out essentially what quantum entropy refers to. It's a measure of the randomness or uncertainty in the system, just of nature, at small scales. So it's really like, quantum refers to the world on kind of the smallest level. So like it's matter, but atoms, subatoms, like you're getting down to the beyond molecular level of matter and the environment. And so that's so there's a whole field of quantum physics where they study that, and that is also how they are doing things like figuring out how life begins, because an atom is the smallest form of life. And so they're like, what does that mean? And so, they test things, and, there is all these different theories about how it reacts, how it affects us, how we live in the world as, we're matter, and we're made up of these small particles. And so by testing them, it lets them learn more about not just the human body, but just kind of the world and the environment in which we live. And so when you are doing a Randonaut, you are essentially just kind of choosing random points of matter, or random points in kind of these areas where there is matter. There is three areas where you will show up when you do a Randonaut. So either you are looking for an attractor, you're looking for a void, you're looking for an anomaly. And so an attractor is a dense cluster of random points, which is just dense areas of matter. So there's just going to be a lot of things there. So I would think, like, if you're in a city, you're probably surrounded by a lot of attractors, just because there's just a lot of people and buildings and things that are in kind of one place. And so that's if you were an attractor. Voids are sparse clusters of random points, and so they're sparse areas of matter. So I think when people choose voids, that's sometimes when they are in those more I'll say desolate areas, where they might find an empty field or something where it's like there's not a lot of stuff around, that is and so that doesn't necessarily mean there's one is negative or positive. It's just one has more stuff, matter in it, and another one has less. That's neither, because you can have, and I've seen the Reddit thread, you can have good or bad experiences in both. It's really more about your intention than it is about whether it's an attractor or a void. Even though void kind of has a slightly negative connotation, it's not negative in this instance. And then the third thing is an anomaly, where it's kind of a strong mix of both attractors and voids, which is basically kind of maybe the most, I don't know, powerful. It's just kind of a mixture of, you kind of have a variety of energies in that particular area. And so I think that the quantum part was interesting to me because it was basically just, it kind of brought about two things. One, the physical space, and you kind of going to this physical space that may be in your area that you just aren't aware of. And so that's another kind of thing about the Randonauticas, because like you might be exposing yourself to areas that you just haven't noticed. And so it's a way to explore your surroundings. But also the intention part of it, which I thought was interesting, which I feel like people kind of gloss over a little bit, because your intention, and that's a part of quantum physics, is, you know, your thoughts kind of affect you and the energy that you put out as a being, and your thoughts help guide the matter around you and how you move through space. And so when you set the intention, it sets the tone for how you're going to move through space toward that particular location, which means if your intention is, you know, something that may be a little bit frightening, like death or fear or anger, then you're pointing yourself in the direction of whatever location, but the energy around it is going to reflect that when you arrive. Now, in the instance of one of the more popular stories, I think this was interesting because these guys were in Seattle, and they did a randonaut, and their intention was travel. It took them to the beach, and they found a suitcase that was just on the beach. So there's a video of it that I'll link below. And so, you know, the guys are seeing it and they're like, this is weird. And I think they just had a sense of things. This was kind of an unsettling situation for them. And so you can hear them kind of getting nervous, and you know, there's a lot of nervous laughter. I've seen some of the comments on some of the videos. People are like, what are they laughing about? It's, you know, they're immature. And it's like, no, it's just nervous laughter. They're just like, we are uncomfortable, and we're not sure what we just walked into. And so they find the suitcase, and they're like, the suitcase smells really bad. And then one of the girls with them, she gets a stick and like opens the suitcase, and it's like immediately the suitcase smells horrible. And I think it's just kind of instinct. When they see the suitcase, they kind of start joking, and they're just like, is this a dead body? And like I said, I definitely think that was nervous laughter. And so they're joking about it, but I say to their credit, because they are kind of investigating it, but only so far. Once she opens it and the smell overwhelms them, they're just like, you know what, this feels like something we need to call the police for. And so they stop and they call the police, which, if you're going to call the authorities for something, to have them actually, you know, show up and contribute to the safety of the community, that's a place where that makes sense, because it's like they have the expertise and they have the personnel to look into that in a way that most individuals do not. So they call the Seattle police show up, and they're like, all right, they kind of take over the scene. And I'm sure they think that when they show up, they know the smell of a dead body. So I'm sure, probably like immediately like, oh, this is suspicious. This smells like a dead body. We just need to confirm it. And so what happens is that later on, either that day or later on that week, you see a news story about them finding the remains of two people in that suitcase. And so of course the guys who, it was two ladies and a guy, the group that goes to, like, they're really upset by it. It really kind of, you know, traumatizes them, or maybe not traumatizes, but maybe, because I saw one story where, sorry, my cat decides he wants to play with a toy that's loud, but he kind of says, you know, he has a hard time sleeping. The guy who was he put it on his TikTok, he kind of says, you know, I couldn't really sleep after a while. So it definitely messed him up. just kind of the thought, and who knows what else they're thinking and how else they're processing this, but they found it. And so that was one instance where the intention they said was fairly innocuous. You know, travel is not a particularly negative or positive intention, either one way or the other. And they kind of came across something that definitely would be deemed more of the negative, scary side of things, which I think is probably the interest and why people are interested in doing these randonauts, because it's really, you just don't know what's going to happen. But I was very much interested in kind of the quantum physics of it all. And as someone who is a fan of string theory, which essentially says that the universe, when you break down the and I'm going to link below to a better description of string theory, but this is my super layman, not a quantum physicist or even a physicist or even a scientist description. But there's a theory that even smaller than, or even on the subatomic level, maybe smaller than atoms, but on that level, there are strings, like shaped like strings. Because, you know, I think whenever you see pictures of like atoms, they're like circular. So they have these strings, and these strings are, with them, you're able to kind of travel across planes. And that is when people are talking about like black holes and the potential for time travel. It comes on the string level, because you're able to, it's kind of like a, I don't know if it's a gateway. I could be, I'm not very, this is not my forte, but I, as a sci-fi nerd, was very intrigued by the idea of string theory. And I definitely am one to believe that black holes kind of give you, if you go through a black hole, you change, you know, locations in the universe. That's something that I've always kind of thought, like, I don't think you just kind of disappear. The gravitational pull is because you are being pulled from one star system to another star system, and there's so many universes and they're all layered on top of each other. So that I thought was cool. When I found out about string theory, I was like, oh, they actually have a theory now that they are actively proving to see if this is real. So that's my nerd moment. I'll link below to kind of an article about string theory, just so you can kind of read up on it. But that, when I saw the quantum physics of it, it was interesting. But then the intention of it, I thought was interesting, because there is that belief that as entities that move within this space, and we are any entities that have the ability of kind of focused thought, that intention and those thoughts also affect the space and the matter in which you are in, which then affects, you know, the experience you have when you're in the space, which is why things like affirmations and kind of positive thinking, why that's so important, because, you know, your thoughts affect your thoughts kind of contribute to your beliefs, and then your beliefs contribute to your behavior contributes to kind of how you exist in the world, and all of that is connected. And so therefore, what you think has power, and what you say internally, because that's what your thoughts are, has power over how you experience the world, which is why, you know, people say you have to think good thoughts, or you just have to honor when you have thoughts that may not be good, because trying to push them away is not the, you know, it's not the best thing, and all of that. That's kind of what that whole affirmative thinking and thinking it into existence, all of that stuff, that is a part of quantum physics, which is quantum cognition. So like there's this whole area of science that I think is fascinating, that essentially backs up the idea of intention and thought and positive thinking. Like there is science that is supportive of that, which I think is pretty cool. And so I wanted to look into that, because I think that that is also a part of the app, which is also why people can have vastly different experiences, I think, in like the same area. And so that was my deep dive into Randonautica. Like I said, I'm going to link to all the things below that I referenced, so you can kind of look into it. The app in and of itself is pretty innocuous. There's no, you know, negative intention that I can see on the app or how it is. It's just that people have had these, you know, potentially negative experiences, depending on who you talk to and how they process it. And so I think it's important to keep that in mind. that when you are using Randonautica, you're using a beta, which means that the app could change at any time because they're still developing it and you're essentially testing it. So I am debating if I'll do a Randonautica. I have to convince someone to go with me. So I don't know if I'll even do it, but it is an interesting thing to kind of look into and learn about. So I would love to hear your thoughts on it. If you have never heard of it, you know, check it out. I'm giving you a little bit of information. So yeah, let me know. Let's talk about it in the comments. And otherwise, we'll be back for tomorrow for VEDA. And I look forward to the next time that we can talk again. Bye.